When it comes to the Democratic primary voters, okay, hold that thought. Let's go to the spin room right now. Our Caitlin Huey-Burns is standing by with Democratic candidate Marianne Williamson. And we will get to that conversation. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi, Elaine. Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much. Hi, Marianne Williamson. Tonight, you had a lot of time to talk about some of these issues that you cared about. How do you think you did, and what did you get across?
I don't know. You saw it and I didn't. You know, I was inside my head. So later on tonight or tomorrow, I'll probably look at the tape and I'll have an opinion. But right now, I'm, you know.
How are you feeling about this campaign?
It's, you know, there are two different political universes. One is the dog and pony show. This is part of the dog and pony show and debates and polls and numbers. And then there's another dimension entirely, and that's what's real. And that's when you're actually talking to voters about things that matter, and you have the time, and you get down, and you listen, and you talk about the things that are most real. That part is exhilarating. The other part is very stressful. So on any given day, you have reasons to be happy and reasons to be very stressed, and you have to, there's a lot of emotional discipline involved in just deciding to concentrate on the good.
On the stage tonight, you had a lot to say on the issue of race. You've been talking about reparations for a while. You also talked about Flint, Michigan, and you said that what happened in Flint, Michigan would never have happened in a place like Grosse Pointe. What did you mean by that?
What I meant is that Grosse Pointe has money, and in America, unfortunately, money is what buys political power, and we should stop pretending that we don't know that. So the issue of environmental justice has become such a big thing in this country for good reason. When you look at places like Flint, when you look at places like Denmark, South Carolina, where I visited recently and was very, very awful. And there are towns like this all over the country. And they tend to be more financially disadvantaged places where government officials and corporate officials and business officials get away with things that they know they could not get away with in richer communities. It's as...
You have been pretty critical of Democrats when you're on the debate stage. You said that they're not using the tools of government adequately to help people. Do you think a debate...
That's a little far. I don't think I've quite said that. What I did say tonight, that it's not just about a plan of governing, it's about a philosophy of governing. And I believe strongly that government, the tools of government should be used for the purpose of helping people. That we shouldn't make that like there's something wrong with that. I've had some success in my life. I've been very blessed, and I'll tell you something. I've thought deeply about how did I succeed in the areas that I succeeded, and in every area where I've succeeded, I know the main factor was that somebody helped me. And I grew up in a home where I was loved, where I had a good public education, public school education, and just all the way along my professional path, there have been people who reached out their hand and said, here, let me help you, let me teach you, let me show you, let me invest in you in some way. Now, I know people just as talented as me, just as smart as me, who haven't been helped along quite as much. And after a while, I watch people who feel so debilitated because everything's too much of a struggle. And that shouldn't be true in the cases of so many millions of people in the richest country in the world. So I believe government should be used. All public policy, right now, there is public policy in this country that caps people's dreams, that thwarts people's dreams. Governmental policy should uncap people's dreams. Governmental policy should be based on that which unleashes the spirit of people, so people can be their best, so that we can be producers and be creators and be great citizens and be great parents and be great friends, and that's how you get prosperity, and that's how you get peace.
What's next for your campaign? Where do you go from here?
I was supposed to go to New Hampshire, but now I have to fly to Los Angeles instead to do Bill Maher on Friday night.
Marianne Williamson, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Good to see you. Elaine, back to you.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns for us there in the spin room. Caitlin, thank you so much. So Marianne Williamson, off the bat there, really interesting response to Caitlin's question, which is a question that is asked of all of the candidates, is how do you think you did? And she said, quote, I don't know. I was in my own head, which struck me as a very sort of non-politician kind of answer. You don't often hear that from people, Lynda, in her position who have been on that national Democratic
It was totally on brand, though, as a kind of response from somebody very spiritual.
Right.
I was in my own head.
Right.
I'll get back to you on that.
But it sort of speaks to the fact that, you know, people who may have been seeing her for the first time or sort of, you know, not familiar with her, I was just looking on Twitter. There are apparently a number of searches over the course of this evening, as this conversation continued, and particularly as Caitlin brought up this issue of race, which was fascinating to hear her kind of think out loud about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you were tuning in tonight for the very first time, you were probably surprised by this woman that you may not know very much about. She was very appealing, but she was also substantive, and actually her whole riff and response on reparations and race and the dynamics between where she grew up versus what is happening in communities like Flint was really very earnest and felt so authentic, and I mean, would be very appealing.
I do want to bring up, so Caitlin had asked Marianne Williamson a question just a moment ago, and Marianne Williamson's response was, well, I never said that. We have the bite that Caitlin referenced there, and we want to just play it so people can kind of understand what the context was and what it is that Marianne Williamson actually said. This is about government and sort of the idea of governments, Democrats using the instruments of the government to help people.
If we get rid of this college debt, think of all the young people who will have the discretionary spending. They'll be able to start their business. The best thing you could do to stimulate the U.S. economy is to get rid of this debt. This is not just about a plan to do it. It's about a philosophy of governing. And I've heard some people here tonight, I almost wonder why you're Democrats. You seem to think there's something wrong about using the instruments of government to help people. That is what government should do. It should.
So that was an interesting moment, Jen Palmieri. I mean, you know, as a Democrat listening to that, what did you make of that moment?
Yeah, I think she has a certain appeal, and I think she is getting a lot of attention on Twitter because she is sort of I mean, on one hand, she has this a rather flighty appearance because of her background, you know, and considers herself a healer, but she's also a real person who's thrown herself in a political ring, and I think she's got some appeal about that. She has normal person reactions to things.
I know, it's so odd to hear that.
It is odd.
Right?
It's very, and she's very informed too, right? And she's a compelling speaker. So I think all those things combine to make her intriguing. You know, I don't believe that she has the kind of experience that you would want in a president, or that she will go much further than this. But you know, a lot of Democrats are uncomfortable with her on stage. I think it's good because you know, I think to like open up and have America see anybody who gets the right amount of support can make it here is good.
Well, Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican of South Carolina, he was watching the debates, and he says, judging by the audience reaction, Marianne Williamson was the winner.
Huh.
Yes. So
interesting.
Exactly. Keep in mind he is a Republican and running for re-election in South Carolina. However, then he went on to say that the real winner was, of course, at realdonaldtrump.com. You know.
Yeah, right. But, you know, I mean, it is interesting, though, Leslie, because there is a clear sort of demarcation here between sort of, you know, established politicians who are very much used to being in that political arena, and then someone like a Marianne Williamson who is on that stage. And, you know, again, I just keep going back to Caitlin's first question to her, how do you think you did, you know? And usually you can pretty much script the answer to that question. I think I did great. I think I can, you know, right?
Connected with the voters.
And that was really sort of a moment where I said, oh, well, you don't hear that every day.
Well, it's so funny because thinking about Marianne and kind of her writing is very much about mindfulness. So she has to really kind of think about, and a big part of that is no self-criticism. Like she's not going to say I was horrible. Like she's never going to abuse herself. That is against philosophically what she preaches about healing and some of these other things. And I have to agree. It changes the dynamic, especially the discourse of people that follow this. But we could have said the same thing about Bernie Sanders. His ideas were so unorthodox and so extreme 3 years ago that we said nothing like that would ever really happen. And just somebody coming out who didn't really belong to a political party, like this would never be part of it. But they really do change the ecosystem that they're in, the conversation, the tone. And because of that, I think it lifts everybody. And even the Lindsey Graham tweet is a great example of that. It's like people are searching, and she's different.
Well, guess who ran for president a few years ago, who didn't have a background in politics, who gave unexpected answers? I mean, and one of the things that Marianne... Well,
him too. Occupant of the Oval Office.
Him too, that's right. But one thing that Marianne Williamson did say in that first debate was, listen, folks, I don't know about plans. We shouldn't be talking about plans. We're not going to beat Donald Trump with a plan. He doesn't have plans, and he won. So, I mean, she's very plain spoken when it comes to the reality of how we're going to get voters
Yeah.
and what it'll take to connect with voters.
Is she somebody that could potentially, Lynda, appeal to a voter that has yet to be identified? I mean, is there such a thing? Is there at this point, in 2019, I know there's an incredible amount of data and people, their livelihoods are made on actually sort of dissecting the electorate, but is it possible there is a type of voter out there not yet identified that a Marianne Williamson could actually appeal to?
There's no doubt she has appeal to someone.
Right.
Otherwise, she wouldn't be on the stage.
Sure.
So that, I think, is settled. I think there's a question mark whether, I think this is the point you're making, Elaine, whether she might appeal to the evangelicals or some category of folks who threw their support behind Donald Trump and maybe are looking for something different.
Exactly.
However, I think the answer to that is no. I mean, everything that we've seen and we've heard, both in terms of analysis and anecdotally, about those people of faith who you might think their values collide with Donald Trump, they don't care. They are very, very clear. They feel that, Donald Trump is president because God wanted him to be president, and so they're going to back him no matter what. And I don't think anything that happens, no matter what racism spews, what sort of sins he commits, are going to shift that from them. And I also think that more broadly within the Democratic primary electorate, people are looking for experience, and while it might be, kind of cute even and interesting to have this dynamic on stage, and it's certainly entertaining and, gets a response from the crowd, I don't think that at the end of the day,